Hey folks, here's a video to share an overview of the project and some tips on using Cards for Life. It was really great to gather some of you on the calls recently, and for those of you that weren't able to make it, here's an overview of what was shared during those calls. I plan to make some other spaces to drop in, some casual drop-ins for sharing practice and meeting each other and sharing ways of using the cards. But for now, let me take you to the presentation and show you what was shared. Cards for Life, a regenerative learning and practice system for dynamic ways of being and doing. One of the things that came up on the call, on one of the calls, a helpful bit of feedback was this guidance about how to read the cards. I think of the cards as having sort of three levels. The first one being the main concept, the title, and the image, the visual metaphor, and this little poetic phrase underneath. I think of that as like the first level, the first layer of reading the cards. And for a lot of uses, it's helpful to just tell people that when you're introducing them to the cards and for yourself, just to read at that surface level. Also to speak to or interpret the image itself. There's a lot of information in the images, in the visual metaphors. So that's kind of level one. And then level two, to dive a bit deeper, you can read the text below the image at the bottom of this side of the card. Usually there's two passages on there. One is often more towards sort of personal relationship to that concept, and the other one might be more sort of systemic direction or way of applying it. So that would be the second level, these two passages. And then the third would be the other side of the card, the questions, which is much more cognitive. I think of this side of the card as being helpful to use in a workshop, or if that card is going to be used for a deeper inquiry, for a team, for an organization. And remember that these questions are just examples of questions that come from that concept. And you might be inspired to think about your own questions that come from, in this case, impermanence. So sort of level one, level two, level three. I think that can help people not get too overwhelmed. There's a lot of information in the cards and a lot of information on each one. The idea was that each card could kind of carry everything itself. But as I develop the booklet, I will be taking some of the questions off and making a bit more space on the cards, so they're a little more accessible. For this stage, though, I think those three levels are helpful. Another thing that came up was just pointers on how to use the cards. Now, I've spoken to a lot of you one-to-one, and I know some of you are designing processes with the cards already, and that's so great. This is what the pilot stage is about. And it's about, finding your own appropriate ways of using them. But as a guide, I think my kind of top two personal and collective practices would be these top two on this slide here. The first one being dynamic nature. And I think of the dynamics set and suit as being the kind of the primary cards, really nature's dynamics, and a way of getting to know them, which is nice and easy and can be sort of everyday, kind of quite casual, is to take one of the dynamics cards and put it in your pocket when you go for a walk and look for examples of that concept, relationship, place. What's been emerging in the WhatsApp group, which is really nice, is taking a picture of the card next to some examples that you find of it out there in the world. Yield. You can see just behind me on the shelf are some packs of cards. So that could be an example of yield for me. So they can be applied to human systems as much as natural systems. But taking a card for a walk and looking for examples of that dynamic work is a really nice way of getting to know them. Growth. Mutuality. So I recommend dynamic nature, this observational practice up here. A collective way of using the cards, which has been working really well, is a being circle. And This kind of follows this sequence of seeing dynamic as primary and then being, the being modes, before we go to the doing, which I'd like to talk about maybe in another video and in some of the other meetings. The being circle, that's a really nice way of getting to know the being cards with a group of people. And for that, you can be sat around in a circle, could just be with a pair or any larger number of people. A way I like to do this is to pass the pack of being cards around and everyone just take a card in turn, however they choose to do so, shuffling, cutting the deck, drawing one out. And then in turn, each person speaks to the concept of the card that they've drawn. So in this case, intuition, remembering this like layered way of reading the cards. And so that's a helpful invitation to people in a being circle, is just to read the card at the topmost level, maybe even speak to the image and talk about how they relate to that concept, how it shows up in their life, if they're working with intuition or not, why not, and so forth. This brings up this way of talking about the cards, which is as permission slips for more honest and even loving conversations. And I think it's a really beautiful phrase, permission slips. And it seems to suit these cards well, that they can enable people to talk about things that would be harder to open up about if they were met straight on. So dynamic nature and being circles are two really nice ways of using the cards. The inner exploration and organizational regeneration I'd like to come to later, but quite simply, inner exploration works as detailed here, drawing a card from each set, starting with the doing, an area of activity or somewhere that needs attention or energy. And then a being card that can offer a quality of being that can help us do that doing. Thirdly, a dynamic of life, one of life's dynamics that can help bring these two together, might help create a conversation between that being and doing. This is more of a kind of tarot inspired use of the cards, and it can be a great way of getting to know them and deepening some personal inquiry. Now, to do this, it would be good to have a question or an inquiry to bring. So I've been doing this spread quite a lot for the project itself, for Cards for Life, like asking what would be a good way of approaching the pilot phase, for instance. So the seasons and cycles card was coming up a lot in this kind of reading, informing the pace of the project. Organizational regeneration works quite well, like on a sheet of paper, where you can lay some cards out in relation to a project or a challenge that's been specified. And then maybe using the back of the cards and answering some of the questions that they ask can help generate ideas about how to develop that project in a way that's connected with life and living systems, as is the mission of the cards. So that's just some tips on ways to use them. Do remember you'll have access to this presentation. And of course, I'm here to help you find ways of even adapting some of these practices. Next, I would like to show you the whiteboard I've made for feedback. It's quite self-explanatory. The cards are laid out in these three circles in their three suits. And there's some colored post-its for different kinds of feedback, whether that's edits, additional questions you might want to add, outcomes and insights that have come from the cards, or just any general suggestions. And feel free to just drop those post-its next to the cards. I think there's some that have come in there that I haven't seen before. So this is the area for feedback on the cards. On the right, there's some frames about the project in general. Design of the cards, we talked about accessibility, making the different suits easier to determine or to discern. So adding the icons, braille, larger print, these sorts of things. On the sustainability of the product, different materials that the cards might be printed on, things like that. And how they can be a really regenerative business model around them. So there's a few different areas. If you've got any thoughts or feedback, please do share in here. And then on this side, this is really about use of the cards. So with the different exercises here, there's some frames where you can write any feedback, any ways that you use these exercises, and any outcomes that came from them. If your feedback doesn't neatly fit into process or outcome, these color-coded post-its, just feel free to add in any color, and I'll gladly receive the feedback and integrate it. So here is the feedback whiteboard, a little map emerging of places that the cards have gone to down here. Now, I've mentioned to a few of you, or shown a glimpse to some of, on this layer of the physical product, there's the cards obviously, and there will be a booklet with them. I'm a little way through creating the booklet at the moment, and I plan to share that with everyone probably by the end of November, once I've had some time to tidy it up and continue writing it. Each card basically has a page with its definition, a larger sort of description of that concept, that card, and why it's in this set and how it relates to the other concepts. And then there's some more quotes and a deeper dive. So recommendation of a book or a talk, something like this. Yeah. Lastly, further questions and the other angles, the synonyms that are at the bottom of the question side of the cards. So there's quite a resource here already, and I really look forward to sharing that with you all. There was something else I was going to share. Yeah, that is my website. There's now a page for the cards. So if you click that tab, Cards for Life, you'll come here. There's a link to the presentation there as well. So you can always find it here. And there's a waitlist form. So if you come across anyone, or anyone comes across the cards via you and they're interested in finding out when the product's ready, please send them this way. It'd be great to build up names on the waitlist so they can just add a name and email. So that's that on the website. And then lastly, in the presentation, which I've updated recently, there's a mock-up of the digital application and the web platform, how I imagine that coming together, so that people can use the cards, the physical cards, in workshops, in their personal practice. But the ultimate sort of realization of the project is that there'll be a digital layer. So each card will kind of give way to a feed for that particular card, and people will be able to share insights and inspirations, outcomes of how they've been working with that concept. And then people will be able to search that site. So if you had the app, it might look a little something like this. Based on the impermanence card, someone might click personal and make a personal entry about how they're working with impermanence. So observing dynamics, or dynamic nature, as that exercise was called. On an autumn walk, I saw signs of impermanence and realized everything has to fall before it renews itself. Just a mocked up kind of poetic reflection on impermanence. And there will be some hashtags there as well: impermanence, personal, UK, dynamics. So this would allow, on the other side of the application, someone in the receiving mode to be able to search for any posts, including impermanence, personal, UK, in this example. So someone sort of searching through the app, looking for regenerative insights and reflections, might then see this post by this user, and they would be able to see that that reflection there, and maybe even connect with that person. So here's just a first kind of mock-up example of how the application could look, and I'm really looking forward to detailing that further. But for now, this is Cards for Life, some tips on use. It was really great to come together in a group on a call, and I look forward to doing that more. Please feel free to book a session with me through the calendar booking link if you haven't had a one-to-one session already. There have been some really inspiring uses of the cards so far, and I'm looking forward to hearing more. So I'll leave it here for now, and I will send some information about the next meetups as I said, I hope there'll be some more casual meetings in November before the final calls. So wishing you well with your cards. Enjoy playing with them. Reach out to me if you want to chat or any feedback. But yeah, try putting one in your pocket, taking it for a walk, and try hosting a circle, or even just with a friend or a partner, exploring the being cards. I would love to hear feedback on how that's going for you. Take care and see you soon.